So I'm going to show you today how to trim a bowl, how to deal with the components of the bowl, talking about the body to the rim and how to define the foot or the foot ring. So the first thing I'm doing is just tapping this to see how thin it is. So from here it's thicker, here it's thinner. If I cut it in half I could look at it. Now on the wheel, now that I have it turned on and ready, there's circles on the wheel and they're guides to tell you where to attach this for trimming. So I'm going to put it in the center, and then I'm going to do what's called tapping. Just like if you've ever seen something spinning like this, I'm just feeling with my hands to see if I'm centered or not, and then I tap if it taps me, if it hits me in the fingers. So if you look, my finger, as I pull away, you'll see one little spot touches. So I just adjust it a little bit, and I ignore the foot because that's what I'm going to remove. So this is as long as the bowl is close to center. So right there, another method is you actually put your hands around it and you can just squeeze a little bit to adjust it. And I usually tap with my left finger, left middle finger. Okay. Then you'll take clay that's hard versus wet, and you're going to put it, you're going to attach the clay to the wheel head and to the bowl carefully so you don't distort it, you don't squish it. And you want to do this in a tripodal fashion, like in a triangle. So I usually look over and then attach it. And I usually push really hard at the end just to make sure that it doesn't wiggle too much. Alright, so now that's on there. Okay. So now I'll set my speed. And your kit that you bought for throwing on the wheel came with two trimming tools. So there's the two-sided tool, which has a loop and then a sharper edge loop for angles. And then it has this one, which is sort of a kidney shape. And some of them come with a point, some don't. This one doesn't. And the first thing you're going to do is lock your hands and body and start removing a little bit of the clay. I usually start by flattening the bottom. I also, at this point, tap and listen. If you've ever tapped like a cantaloupe or a watermelon, if you hear a really, really hollow sound, it's really thin right here. It's a little bit thicker right there, thicker right here, thinner right there, like almost very light there. Okay. So you want to keep the edge of the tool clean as you trim. So you start by flattening the bottom, then make sure you're holding the tool tight so you're trimming the bowl with the tool versus the tool hopping around. And you'll see I'm just working, following the curve. And why we trim is to take off excess weight and to define our foot ring for when we deal with glazing. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and flatten the bottom a little bit more. And then I'm going to use this part of the tool to create a bevel and to start creating and defining my foot ring. Just like that. Then I'm going to take the round side again at an angle, and you're going to see a little line, shadow line up here. I'm cutting right under the foot ring a little bit, and that's to make what I normally call a glaze catch. And I'll explain that after I'm done trimming and take the bowl off. But I always have a little bit of an undercut under my foot ring. Then just follow the curve of the bowl. You'll notice I keep my fingers on it, on the top as I work around. And you'll create trim rings. And some people like them, some like to remove them. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep cutting. And then as I get to the edge where it's reaching the curve, I'm going to let up gently. That way I don't make a sharp edge there that can appear in the glaze firing. Now the next step is I'm going to bevel the edge right here. I'm going to cut a little bit of a rounded edge. And the reason for that is if you leave that edge sharp, at like a 90-degree angle like this, then it chips easier when you use it a lot. So I always round out my edges just like I have my rim rounded out. Okay. I'm going to switch tools to this tool, the round side. I'm going to hold it like a pencil, and I'm locking it in, and I'm going to remove some of the middle material and create what's called a floating foot ring. And then I'm flipping to the other one, and I'm going to define this a little bit more. And this is just the way that I was trained to trim feet, that I want to round out this middle, so the curve of the middle part that I'm cutting out in here will curve and match the outer curve, so it makes this ring float. At this point I'm tapping to check, because the worst thing you can do is, at this point, is cut through the bottom. Then you have a bottomless bowl, or you have a little hole in the bottom, you end up with a planter. I'm not looking for a planter, so okay. Same thing, make sure the inside edge is beveled a little bit, so it's rounded a little bit, so it doesn't chip easily from use. Now at this point I have to decide, am I done trimming? Because once I take the balls of clay off, then there's no way to recenter this and get that foot ring correct. So I'm going to call this one done. So I'm just going to reach over and peel these off. And you'll know if you use too wet of clay because it'll smear. The last step, like always, is to sign your work. So I'm just going to put my initials, the year, and then my full last name. And then I'm going to dry this slowly so it doesn't crack as it dries. I'm also checking to make sure the rim is smooth. You can see the line that goes, the curve that goes around here, that it's not a harsh line, it's a really soft, delicate line. So when I glaze it, you won't see that as much. Though sometimes I'll run my thumb across it to make sure. So that's how you trim a bowl.